My fiancée cheated on her bachelorette trip with two strangers, so I let her walk the aisle alone while everyone watched me board my flight. I'm a 29-year-old guy who honestly believed I'd already won life's biggest lottery. From the moment I met Emily, it felt like something clicked into place, like the universe had finally decided to throw me a bone. We met at a friend's game night, and when she laughed at one of my corny puns, I swear the whole room blurred into the background. 5 years later, everyone still called us the dream couple, and I believed every word. Our wedding plans became the heartbeat of our lives. Every Sunday afternoon, we'd sit cross-legged on the living room floor, Emily's laptop glowing with spreadsheets of candlelight arrangements and reception playlists. I remember the way she'd nudge me with her elbow whenever I suggested something cheesy, like the idea of walking down the aisle to an acoustic cover of our favorite rock song. She'd roll her eyes, but then secretly add it to the list. Even my mum, who's notorious for dissecting every girlfriend I've ever had, pulled me aside one night and whispered, "This one's different. Don't let her go." For my mother, that was practically a standing ovation. I would catch myself daydreaming about the little moments ahead. Her hand fitting into mine as we cut the cake. Our first dance with fairy lights wrapped around the trees. The look we'd share when everyone else faded into a blur. There was a softness to those thoughts that made the chaos of wedding prep feel like a sweet kind of madness. If I'd known how sharply those dreams would shatter, maybe I would have paid more attention to the tiny, silent tremors, those fleeting moments when Emily's smile didn't quite reach her eyes. But back then, I only saw the life we were about to build, and I held on to it like it was unbreakable. I didn't realize the cracks were already forming beneath the surface. A week before the wedding, Emily zipped her suitcase shut with a grin that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Miami, here we come," she said, twirling the handle like a kid heading to summer camp. I kissed her goodbye at the airport drop-off, the salt of the early morning air clinging to my skin. For a heartbeat, everything felt normal. But as her figure disappeared into the crowd, a strange weight settled in my chest, like someone had quietly turned down the volume on the world. That night, I noticed the first tremor. Her phone, usually face up on the counter, was now flipped screen down every time we FaceTimed. When I teased her, "What's with the sudden CIA vibes?" she laughed it off and changed the subject. The next evening, a text alert buzzed while we were on a call. She glanced away, thumb flying, then quickly locked the screen. "Just the girls," she said. But her voice carried a tiny hitch, the kind only someone who knows you inside out would catch. By the third night, the story of who exactly was on this trip began to shift. First, it was her college roommates and her sister. Then suddenly her sister couldn't make it, and a friend from work was tagging along instead. When I asked for a name, she brushed it aside with a breezy, "You don't know her anyway." During a late groomsman hangout, my best man raised an eyebrow over his beer. "Bachelorette weekend in Miami," he joked, half serious. "Watch out, man. That city's got its own rules." The table erupted in laughter, and I forced a smile, but the joke landed like a pebble in my gut. I told myself it was nothing, just nerves and pre-wedding jitters. Still, as I lay awake staring at the ceiling fans slicing through the dark, the quiet between each rotation seemed to whisper a warning I couldn't quite name. 2 nights into Emily's trip, I was half watching late-night highlights on TV when my phone buzzed with an Instagram notification from a name I didn't recognize. At first, I figured it was just a random follow request, but the message preview froze me mid-reach. "You deserve to know what your fiancé is doing." I opened it, pulse suddenly hammering. A single photo loaded, grainy, like it had been snapped from across a crowded room. The neon haze of a Miami club bled through the shot. Strobe lights streaked pink and blue across a dance floor packed with bodies. And there, unmistakably, was Emily. Her head tilted back in laughter, her arms draped around the shoulders of 2 men, I had never seen in my life. One of them leaned in close, lips almost at her ear, his hand resting on her waist like he owned the moment. My stomach lurched as if the floor had tilted. I zoomed in, praying it was a look-alike. But the crooked little scar above her left eyebrow, an old childhood bike accident, glimmered under the club lights. It was her. No question. I called her immediately, the phone slick in my palm. It rang twice before she declined. Seconds later, a text popped up. "Hey babe, busy with the girls. I'll call tomorrow." No mention of my call. No answer to the message I'd left. "Emily, what the hell is going on?" The room around me seemed to shrink. The announcer's voice on the TV faded into a distant buzz, the air thick and metallic in my mouth. I stared at the photo until the colors burned into my vision, waiting for some second message to explain it all away. Nothing came. That single image, blurry yet unmistakable, felt like the first hairline fracture splintering through the life I thought was unshakable. By morning, I'd barely slept, just drifted in and out of a restless haze. The photo from last night burned behind my eyelids. My phone buzzed again before the sun even cleared the blinds. Same unknown account. My thumb hovered, cold and shaky, before I opened the message. This time, it wasn't a picture. It was a video, the screen filled with pulsing neon light, the low thump of bass rattling through the tiny speakers. Emily stood at the center of it all, her white party dress catching every flash like a beacon. One man pulled her close, their mouths colliding in a kiss that left no room for doubt. The other slid his hand around her waist, fingers tracing the small of her back as if they'd done it 100 times. Her laugh, clear, familiar, cut through the music like a blade. I replayed it once, twice, 10 times. Each loop punched another hole through my chest. Rage roared up like a sudden fire, but nausea followed just as fast, twisting my stomach until I thought I might actually be sick. I needed someone else to see it, to tell me I wasn't losing my mind. I forwarded the video to my best friend, Mark, with a single word. "Emily." Seconds later, my phone lit up with his call. "Dude." "That's her," he said, voice low, careful. No question. The silence after his words was deafening. I dropped onto the couch, the leather cold against my palms. My heart pounded so hard I could hear it in my ears, a relentless drum I couldn't silence. 4 days. That was all that stood between me and a wedding that suddenly felt like a cruel joke. And still, she hadn't called. Not a word. Just that video looping in my head, evidence I could never unsee. I must have stared at her contact name on my screen for a full hour, my thumb hovering just above the call button. Every muscle in me screamed to demand the truth, to shove that video in her face and watch the lie crumble. But when I finally hit call, my throat locked tight and my chest went hollow. I hung up before the first ring. Instead, I typed a message that felt like a trap I wasn't sure I wanted to spring. "Hey, how was last night? You girls still tearing up Miami?" My hands shook as I hit send. Her reply came back almost instantly, cheerful and wrapped in emojis. "So fun. We just had drinks at the hotel bar and stayed in for a movie. Miss you." I read it 3 times, each word slicing sharper than the last. Not a flicker of hesitation. No crack in the story. Just a flawless lie like she'd been practicing it for years. That, more than the video itself, chilled me to the bone. It wasn't a drunken mistake she'd wake up regretting. It was a secret she fully intended to carry down the aisle. I could almost hear her laugh as she'd greet guests on our wedding day, the same easy smile masking a betrayal so deep it made my skin crawl. For the first time since this nightmare began, my anger shifted into something darker. I pictured her in that white dress, walking toward a man she thought would never know. And in that vision, I wasn't waiting for her. The idea settled into me like a cold stone. I didn't need a screaming match or a public fight. Something quieter, sharper, would cut deeper. And as the night stretched on, That dark resolve began to take shape, an answer forming in silence. The next evening, just as I started convincing myself the video might be the worst of it, my phone buzzed again. Same anonymous account. This time, there was no shaky preamble, just a series of screenshots that stacked on the screen like falling bricks. The first was a hotel receipt timestamped 2 nights ago, 2 extra room charges, 2 minibar tabs that looked like they'd been emptied in a single sitting. Then came the messages, a private group chat between Emily and her bridesmaids, captured in perfect clarity. "Best bachelorette ever," one of her friends typed, followed by a string of fire emojis. Emily's own reply made my throat close. 2 guys. Same night. "Zero regrets," another friend chimed in with laughing emojis, teasing her about one last wild ride before the ring. Emily responded with a winking face and the words, "Don't tell the boys." I scrolled through the evidence, each swipe a fresh slice across something I once believed was unbreakable. The woman I'd trusted with every secret, every plan for the future, wasn't just reckless, she was proud of it. She hadn't slipped. She'd orchestrated the night and bragged about it like a trophy. The photo and video had cracked my world, but this obliterated it. I set the phone down, but the words burned behind my eyelids. Rage and disbelief tangled until I couldn't tell one from the other. My fiancée hadn't only betrayed me, she'd turned my life into the punchline of her private joke. For the first time, the person I thought I knew disappeared entirely, replaced by someone I couldn't recognize, and as that realization settled in, something inside me hardened. This wasn't just a wedding I needed to stop. It was a deception so deep it demanded a response she'd never forget. The night of the rehearsal dinner felt like walking into someone else's life. The restaurant glowed with soft candlelight, the kind Emily had begged the wedding planner to match for the ceremony. Laughter floated across the long table, silverware chimed against china, and every sound scraped against my nerves like sandpaper. I moved through it all like a ghost, my smile fixed in place, my heart a stone sinking deeper with every breath. Her parents stood to toast, glasses catching the warm light. "To a beautiful future," her father said, his voice thick with pride. "To Emily and the man she chose to build it with." Everyone clinked glasses. I raised mine too, the crystal trembling between my fingers. The champagne tasted like metal on my tongue. Across the table, Emily threw her head back and laughed at something her bridesmaid whispered. The sound once felt like home. Now it landed like a blade. I searched her face for some sign, guilt, a flicker of hesitation, anything. But she was radiant, unbothered, the perfect bride-to-be. My chest tightened until it hurt to breathe. My throat felt raw, as if a scream sat just behind my teeth, waiting to break free. I caught my reflection in the window, eyes sunken, jaw clenched, and barely recognized the man staring back. The room around me buzzed with easy joy, a scene rehearsed to perfection, and yet I was the only one who knew it was all a lie. They were actors in a cruel play, reading lines that made me the punchline. I forced another smile, the muscles in my face aching, while inside everything collapsed. This was my rock bottom, a hollow seat at a table of people who thought they knew our love, while I drowned silently in the truth no one else could see. That night, when the last guest's laughter faded and the house settled into a hush, I lay beside Emily in the dark, staring at the faint glow of the alarm clock. Her breathing slipped into an easy rhythm within minutes, soft, steady, the sound of someone who believed the world was exactly as she wanted it. The calm of it should have soothed me. Instead, it stoked the storm that had been building inside me since Miami. My first instinct was to shake her awake, shove my phone in her face, and demand the truth. But the thought of another lie, another flawless performance, made something in me snap. Rage cooled into something sharper, more deliberate. I slid my phone from the nightstand and, with a thumb that no longer trembled, opened the airline app. An early morning flight, first one out. I booked it without hesitation. Then a discreet car service, silent pickup at dawn, no questions asked. Each confirmation email felt like a quiet drumbeat of resolve. I moved like a shadow, pulling my carry-on from the closet, careful not to let the wheels scrape the hardwood. Emily shifted once, murmuring something in her sleep, and I froze, heart hammering. When her breathing evened again, I exhaled and continued, folding shirts with a precision I'd never cared for before. I glanced at her peaceful face, bathed in the soft silver of moonlight spilling through the curtains. The same face that had smiled across from me at dinner, all charm and practiced innocence. The contrast sliced through me, her blissful unawareness against the fury burning through my veins. I knew then that calling off the wedding wasn't enough. I wouldn't just walk away quietly. She would walk down that aisle expecting forever, only to find the aisle empty. And as everyone turned to see the groom who never came, I'd be miles away, already in the sky. The morning of the wedding dawned bright and gold, the kind of light that photographers pray for. The house was already alive when I opened my eyes, hairdryers humming, coffee brewing, the sharp scent of hairspray floating down the hall. Laughter spilled from the bridesmaids' room, quick and carefree, as if the world itself were conspiring to keep the day picture perfect. I dressed in my suit, with slow, careful movements, each button closed like the click of a lock. My reflection in the mirror looked composed, almost serene, but inside my thoughts churned like a storm tide. My phone buzzed, a text from Emily. "Today is forever. I can't wait to be your wife." A heart emoji followed, bright and innocent, like a splash of paint over a crack in the wall. I stared at the message until the letters blurred. My pulse stayed steady, not from peace, but from the cold certainty of what came next. Downstairs, I laid a single envelope on the kitchen counter. White, unmarked, but heavy with the truth. Inside were the photos, the video, and one sentence written in my cleanest handwriting. "This is why I won't be there." I placed it where no one could miss it, between the coffee pot and the stack of neatly folded napkins. Around me, the house pulsed with excitement. A bridesmaid squealed over a misplaced lipstick. Someone shouted for a curling iron. Emily sent another text. "I love you. See you at the altar." I slid the phone into my pocket and turned away. The suit felt almost weightless as I walked out the door, carrying nothing but my bag and the quiet knowledge of the chaos that would soon unfold behind me. The morning sun warmed my face, but the chill in my chest stayed unshaken. The church bells tolled like a slow heartbeat as guests filed into the pews, their chatter rising in warm waves beneath the vaulted ceiling. Soft organ music floated through the air, wrapping the room in a gentle promise of celebration. Every face turned toward the doors as they opened, spilling sunlight onto the polished aisle. Emily appeared, radiant in white, her bouquet trembling with excitement. Her smile glowed like the center of a photograph, bright, confident, completely certain of the life waiting for her at the altar. Bridesmaids followed in a neat procession, the audience rising to their feet in a rustle of fabric and anticipation. But when their eyes reached the front, confusion rippled like a sudden draft. Only the officiant stood there, hands folded, eyes darting toward the door where I should have been. A nervous murmur swelled through the crowd. Emily's steps faltered, her grin flickering as the whispers grew. Somewhere near the front row, my mother's voice cut low and sharp. "Where is he?" Then the envelope, my envelope, was found on the side table near the front pew. Someone tore it open, the crisp sound carrying louder than the organ. A hush fell as photos slid out like shards of glass, followed by a phone screen lighting up with the damning video. Gasps broke the silence. A bridesmaid covered her mouth. An uncle muttered something like a prayer. Phones rose one by one, screens flashing with proof of betrayal. Emily froze mid-aisle, her smile collapsing into a vacant stare. The bouquet slipped slightly in her grip, petals trembling like they knew the truth. The organist's music stuttered to a halt, and the heavy quiet that followed was deafening. In that stillness, the weight of her secret, now laid bare, crushed the room around her. Her perfect day had become a public reckoning. While the church dissolved into chaos miles away, I was already wheeling my small carry-on through the cool, echoing terminal of the airport. The air smelled faintly of coffee and jet fuel, a strangely calming mix compared to the storm I'd left behind. Overhead, boarding announcements chimed like distant bells, each one pulling me further from the wreckage of what should have been my wedding day. My phone vibrated non-stop. First, a sharp trill from her parents, then a flood of texts from friends, then Emily's name flashing again and again. I didn't open a single one. The screen lit with their urgency, then dimmed, over and over like a heartbeat I no longer belonged to. When the gate agent called my group, I stepped forward without hesitation. The jet bridge smelled of metal and cold air conditioning. Each step felt like peeling away another layer of the life I'd outgrown overnight. I slid into my seat by the window as the plane hummed awake. My phone buzzed one final time, Emily's name glowing against the black screen. I held it for a beat, thumb hovering over the answer button, then pressed and held until the screen went dark. Silence. As the engines roared and the runway blurred beneath us, I watched the city shrink to a patchwork of tiny squares, church steeples reduced to pinpoints. Relief surged through me, sharp and clean, but beneath it a quieter ache lingered. 5 years of memories fraying into smoke, and yet, threaded through the heartbreak, something new unfurled. Power. For the first time since that first anonymous message, I wasn't reacting. I wasn't the betrayed fiancé or the fool waiting at the altar. I was the one choosing the ending. The sky opened ahead, wide and unclaimed, and I let it swallow me whole. In the days that followed, the story spread like wildfire through our circle of friends, co-workers, and even distant relatives who hadn't spoken to me in years. Screenshots traveled faster than gossip ever could, my envelope's contents pinging from one phone to the next until everyone who had once praised our perfect love knew the truth. My phone buzzed, with messages ranging from stunned disbelief to quiet solidarity. Old college buddies texted late at night. "Man, I can't believe she did that to you." Even people I hadn't spoken to since high school reached out, offering support I never expected. Emily tried calling first, her number flashing again and again until I finally silenced it. Then came the texts, long paragraphs, about how it was a mistake, how the trip got out of hand, how she still loved me. Each one felt like a desperate rewrite of a story that had already been told in unforgiving detail. I never answered. There was nothing left to explain. Mutual friends began to pick sides, most of them quietly aligning with me. Some even apologized for ever teasing me about being too cautious or doubting my instincts. Their words didn't erase the pain, but they reminded me I wasn't as alone as I'd felt that night at the rehearsal dinner. Instead of replaying her betrayal, I booked my own appointments, therapy sessions, long overdue, where I began to peel back the layers of trust I'd lost not just in her, but in myself. I started small, early morning runs, journaling, evenings spent with friends who valued honesty over appearances. The betrayal that once hollowed me out became the spark for rebuilding. And as I stood on my apartment balcony one quiet evening, watching a jet carve its path across the sky, the thought settled in with absolute clarity. Sometimes the best revenge is simply walking away while they watch you fly.